Good afternoon, class. Listen, really impressed with the scores of your quizzes. That was really just outstanding. I don't know that I've had a class where the whole class really did an outstanding job. So good for you guys. Way to study hard. Way to give good effort. Also, just wanted to let you know that the discussion board is graded, so you can take a look at that. A couple, things that need to think about this week because this week, there's we get into some of the earlier letters of Paul. Of course, last week we had Galatians, but this week, specifically looking at the purpose and the occasion of 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. Excuse me. Now remember that the occasion is different than the purpose. So you want to make sure that you give me the purposes for 1st Thessalonians and the occasion, but also the occasion and the purpose for 2nd Thessalonians. That will be important. Sometimes students will leave out 2nd Thessalonians, but just make sure you get that for both of them. And then obviously answer the rest of the parts of the question. The next couple of questions really kind of focus on 1 Corinthians and even 2 Corinthians. Now, the second question really wants you to focus on the various interactions that Paul has with the Corinthian church, and there's several. I mean, he has multiple visits, he has multiple letters, and so part of that question is really asking you to put in order the visits versus the letters. And so do that, give the biblical references that give evidence for the various letters and also visits. That would be very, very important. Also, there's some other parts of that question that are important. Make sure you focus on the opponents and the three views that are often thought to be the opponents. But if that's the main thing, but of course answer the other parts too. And then there is a question on the purpose of both 1st and 2nd Corinthians, excuse me. So make sure you answer and give me the purpose for both. Now, this one is a little bit more complex because when you get to the 2nd Corinthians, there's a couple different parts, and there's chapters 1 through 9 and then 10 through 13, and the purposes are kind of different for each of those sections. So just pay attention to that. Also, make sure you answer the question about the literary plan for both 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians. That's very important for both, but again, a little bit more debate when it comes to 2 Corinthians because some people think it's a composite letter. But you just answer that and give me the pieces of evidence and the reasons why you do or do not think it's a composite letter. And then the next two questions really focus on Romans. And so make sure you answer well the occasion and the purpose for the book of Romans, but then also some of the other questions that are important in terms of the makeup of the church. So make sure you answer all of that. And then the last question has to do with really some key definitions to theological words and concepts that we find in Paul's letters, and perhaps more specifically Romans. However, if you look in the book, you have to read carefully because there are key aspects to these definitions. For example, the righteousness of God. There's a lengthy discussion about the righteousness of God and what exactly that means in the book of Romans, but also in Paul. So make sure you read through that thoroughly. Give me the various views. How is that to be properly understood? Define it well. And then also define faith. Now, I'm not looking for you to use other definitions of faith that we find in the Bible. For example, in Hebrews 11, a lot of students will make that mistake. We want to know how Paul defines faith. So make sure in the reading you take particular note of what he means when he talks about faith. Okay? And then also justification. Now, here again, a lot of times students overlook really kind of what this metaphor means. So make sure in the reading you take careful attention, a careful note of really what justification by faith means, or just justification. So And then there's some other parts of that question, but those three definitions are very important, making sure that you answer them thoroughly based upon your reading. So big week, 5 discussion board questions, just pick 2 of them. Make sure you do the replies. And also, just take note of, make sure you got your citations, making sure that you do them properly, but also making sure you get in 5 citations for your original threads, but also 2 per reply. Also, want to remind you that the paper, again, is just around the corner. So let me just really impress upon you the need to do some research, do some reading now. Trust me, you'll be thankful that you did when the next couple of weeks roll around. It's a big part of your grade. It's one fourth of your grade, the paper is. So make sure you do the best possible job you can. Make sure you look over the proper citations, not only for the footnotes, but also for the headings, and also for the title page, and also for bibliography. Yeah, because those forms are different, believe it or not. The forms for the bibliography and the forms for the footnotes are a little bit different. So make sure you take note of that. And when you start thinking about the paper, one of the things that is important right now, I want to remind you, make sure you do a good job with the introduction. Give me a thesis. So what exactly is a thesis for this paper? Well, tell me what you're going to demonstrate, what you're setting out to demonstrate in that paper, and how you're going to go about demonstrating it. That's basically, what a thesis is. And then, so write a good introduction, give me a good preview of the paper, and then the conclusion, make sure you do a proper conclusion, summarizing the results of your research, and maybe, offering some suggestions for further research. But anyway, there you have it. Just get to work, and you're not going to believe how quickly this term is going to be over. So just keep plugging away, keep working hard. You guys are doing well. I see a lot of improvement, a lot of work is being done. So really appreciate your effort. And again, if you guys need anything, just shoot me an email, okay? All right, guys, have a great week.